16, 17 years ago, I guess it was, when all the bike craze on TV kind of like started. We were just pre of that. My son wanted to get into motorcycling, and we started with that bike, got him a bike, and I customized it, and people wanted to know where we got the parts for it, because number one, it was a metric motorcycle, and they weren't even touching metric motorcycles on the customizing end, true customizing end, stretch tanks and raked front ends and things. So I did it for his bike, and then people were asking about it, and the interest started. And once the interest got started, then he wanted to kind of get into that line. So we started off with Brand X, and just as a name. Ah, depending on what time frame. Out of high school, I went to welding school and became a certified welder, and did that, and built tugboats and whatnot, and engine rooms. And then I got out of that. A friend of mine owned a Corvette repair shop, so I got into the Corvette repair business. I didn't know anything about it. Started learning the fiberglass work and whatnot, and got into it. And as his painter taught me how to paint. And then I opened my own shop after that, hot rod shop, mechanic, hot rod, high performance, custom painting cars and race cars. And then I got into the transmission business, dabbled into the transmission business and stuff. And in the 80s, when the first oil field crash happened and stuff, I had good business, but I just got scared, I guess you could say. Then I went to work for a company, and for a couple of years, and then got into Snap-on. My old Snap-on dealer became a manager, and he ran into me by accident and asked me if I wanted to start selling Snap-on tools. So jumped into Snap-on tools on a truck and did that for 15 years, and then started this. So it was a long process. I've been living a pretty good while. White one. I built it for my nephew, and it was just always my favorite bike. It rode good, it handled right, it looked good, and I never owned any bikes. I always built for customers. So I didn't buy bikes and customize them and sell them. I didn't build bikes and sell them. I built for customers or relatives. And so when I would go to shows, and I say shows, but when I would go to these rallies, and I would set up a display, I'd have to borrow some of my customers' bikes to display. And all I was selling was myself and my work. And he would always joke with me. He said when he'd loan me his bike for a show, when he'd get it back, it always had 400 or 500 miles on it. So, they were all special. My son's bike, of course, was special. It was the first one. It's what got us actually into the business. So if I had my favorite bike was that one. This one was a good one. That orange Yamaha that we did second. My son's good friend. That was one of my favorites. They were all my favorites because I got to put a lot of input into them. Fat Az is spelled P-H-A-T, by the way, A-Z. I wanted to build myself a custom bagger type of bike, but at the time that I started building Fat Az, baggers were considered pawpaw bikes. Nobody was stretching the bags, nobody was custom painting them, nobody was putting wheels on. They were serious touring motorcycles. Nobody was doing hardly any custom work to them at all. So I didn't want to go that route. I wanted a streamlined, cool looking Pro Street, which I call Pro Street, is a long, low bike with saddlebags and a fairing, but still to look cool. I didn't want a pawpaw bike. I wanted a badass bike. So what I did was I always liked the bags on the Bumblebee. So they were a streamlined, rounded, aerodynamic looking set of saddlebags. So I started with that, but I stretched them and extended them and made the bags, and then I built the bike to fit it. So I just stretched everything out and made the tank longer, and I put actually a sport bike fairing on it, which was unheard of at the time. Still kind of sort of. So I built that on that basis to where it was totally different. It was a cool looking bagger, because I got tired of riding without saddlebags. All these cool looking little sport bike things that I was building, bobbers and stuff, there was no storage. And I got spoiled with my Bumblebee with the storage and stuff, so I decided I would build a bagger, but it was a cool bagger. And here comes Fat Ass, and it just kind of progressed as I went along, and the sport bike fairing and all of this stuff, and we get it out there, and it just falls into the middle of the bagger explosion. It was no timing, could have been perfect on my part, but it was totally accidental. By the time I finished Fat Ass, here comes the bagger bike craze. And he started with the stretch bags and custom paint jobs and mag wheels and all of this stuff. So we started showing it around. I was bringing it for advertisement purposes and things, and showing it here and showing there. We wind up in New Orleans, and it's a 1.5 year build. It takes me a 1.5 years during this time frame. Took a couple of months layoff on my son's accident, but anyway, we get back on the road with it and stuff, and I was using it for advertisement purposes. And we go to New Orleans just so, by coincidence, Sylvester Stallone's in town filming a movie. So I'm over there, and everybody's all talking at the show. We were at the Easy Rider show, and they come up there and say, "Hey, Sylvester Stallone's in town. Somebody, he's looking at bikes. He's looking to buy some bikes and all of this stuff." So, okay, that's cool. So I'm still handing out cards and talking to people and stuff. Here comes Sylvester Stallone, and he shakes hands and sits on the bike and thinks it's cool, and he's asking all these really kind of in-depth questions for a movie star. Just, you could tell he was more serious than just wanting to sit on somebody's motorcycle. Specific questions like, it fits good, does it handle well, how does it stop, where would my daughter sit if I decided to ride her on the back? I had a suction cup back seat and all that stuff, so I pull it out and I show it to him. So finally, I'm still clueless that he wants to buy my motorcycle, and all of a sudden he just blurts out, "Well, how much?" And I'm like, "What?" And he said, "For the bike." He said, "How much?" And I said, "It's not for sale." And he said, "I don't blame you. I wouldn't sell it either, but if you change your mind, get in touch with my people." I'm like, I have bragging rights that I turned down Sylvester Stallone to buy my motorcycle. That's going to be my claim to fame. It's going to be on my tombstone or something. And we go and leave the show and stuff, and a bunch of builders go down the road and stuff and frequent a place down there, and I wrecked a bike. A guy lost control and took me out and tore my bike up pretty good. And so I could have sold it, and maybe it would have saved it, but I still have it, and I'm going to rebuild it. So that's the story of Fat Ass. Crazy. I got the claim to fame. I turned down Sylvester Stallone, did not buy my motorcycle. Wow. Probably Matt Hotch. He has a very clean style, which I feel I do too. Even on my old school bikes, usually old school is big and bulky and a lot of cables and a lot of wires and a lot of things showing. I think his style goes with mine a lot, because he'll clean everything up, hides wires and hides cables, and makes everything really flow well. If I took one ride across America, I would actually like to go to Alaska on a motorcycle. Reason being, my father, who rode before me, and we traveled around this country a lot on motorcycle. I rode with him at the time. I was so young, and we rode together on separate motorcycles all over the place up until the 90s. He always wanted to ride to Alaska. That was a huge thing for him, and never did. There's a section of road that's between America and Alaska, and it's like gravel or semi-gravel or semi-blacktop. It depends on who you talk to, but anyway, motorcyclists that did it at the time, it would even have to bring tires with them and things like that, because it was a very abrasive surface and whatnot. So it took some planning and whatnot to just cross that gap, more or less cross the country as well. But yeah. And to see that country, I mean, I would love to see it. So yeah, if I went in, I've been around this country pretty much on motorcycles, but I've never been in that upper west corner anyway. So that would be a good one. I've been to Pennsylvania and Connecticut and Canada and Florida and Colorado, and so next one we're going, Alaska. Man, it comes out of nowhere. I listen. I build for the customers. I'm doing a couple of more now for myself, so that'll have to change my way of thinking. But I listen to the customers a lot on their builds, and that inspiration comes. It's trying to please them and give them really more than what they expected, and the functionality and stuff. The bikes that I build, I don't get to build show bikes. I have to build bikes that they can ride, and not only ride on TV from here to there or whatever. These are their only bikes that they have, so they still want them to ride well. They still want them to handle like a motorcycle. They have to be able to be worked on if they need a tire down the road, and they can't just be a show bike that nobody knows how to work on, or take a tire off, or brake pads or whatever. So my inspiration comes from the functionality, make it as wild and crazy and radical as they want it to be, but yet function properly, and ease of design, and to work on them and whatnot. So on my personal bikes and stuff that I'm doing now, it's just I like I like the past. I like the industrial part of things, when things were hand built and stuff. So my inspiration on these newer bikes that I'm putting together, board track racing, old school board track racing, or flat track racing, which we never had around this area and stuff. So it's coming from all over the place, man. I'm far from a old man, but I'm 57 years old. So, and I've been on the road since I was 3. So I'm 50 years plus on motorcycles on the road, and seen a lot of things and done a lot of things. So all of that automobile, Fat Ass was Cadillac taillights and hood scoops off of cars, and 32 Ford style highbar mufflers. So I throw a lot of car stuff in there. I love airplanes. So I never know where it comes from. It's just if it hits me and it's different, I'll go for it. I like different. If inspiration comes from anywhere, it's different. I'm rebuilding Fat Ass because I tore it all up. Not even it. It was, to me, it was the perfect motorcycle. It came out, and I'm not bragging on myself, but it came out exactly what I wanted and how I wanted it. So even any of the other bikes, I can't say that I have any regrets on or anything. I like to have the chance to build another bike for some of the same people. But as far as for redoing anything on any certain bikes, it pretty much turned out the way they wanted them, or I wanted them. Was pretty satisfied with it. So He did the designs on his bike. John was, when he bought that bike, it was a 99 bike, but it was brand new in the crate, and I think he bought it in '01 or '02. And John was a lot like me, that he liked old school. When you have to understand, when we built John's bike, number one, metric bikes again were not being customized, hardly at all. They weren't magazines for them. They weren't, if it was either Harley or American-based aftermarket engines and whatnot. So, but he loved old school. So the bike came with white wall tires. It had an old school look to it. It had the white wall tires, spoke wheels. It had a fishtail exhaust and whatnot right off the bat. Even though it didn't matter what he was going to buy, he wanted to change it up anyway. I just thought it would go in a whole different direction. We got the bike cheap. It was brand new out of the crate, full warranty on it, several $1,000s cheaper than one of that year sold for. So we got it just as a starter bike, and he stayed with that. And I even mentioned on his magazine article that when we put it in the magazine, that John was thinking old school before old school became cool. He had that old school heart and soul, and the design was totally his. The design was totally his. I just helped him make it happen, and we threw the stretch tank, just came out of nowhere. I just thought the stretch tank kind of made the bike flow better, and it worked. It was a hit when we put it in the when I put it in the magazine. We were there. They filmed it. They shot it, and V-Twin magazines, which it was in, if we can say that, at the end of the year they had a top 10 bikes of the year category. They just picked 10 bikes of the year, and out of all the bikes that they had featured, and that bike was top 10. So, one of top 10. So I was very, very proud of that, because changed it 2 years. We started Brand X. John and his buddy had named it Brand X Choppers, and because Orange County Choppers and all that stuff was kind of kicking off and all of that stuff. And I said, well, it kind of narrows down your clientele, and we didn't have a whole lot of choppers in Lafayette and stuff, in Opelousas. So I always was impressed with Roger Bourget's Bike Works. It was Bourget Bike Works. I always liked Bike Works. So I changed Brand X to Bike Works, and we were probably another year and a half into, once it got serious. We just did t-shirts and we'd ride around, and it was just for fun. It was more of our club than doing it for business. And then a year after we built his bike, then he started looking at the business, and we wanted to go that route. So a good year and a half, couple of years. And then I gave Brand X to him. He wanted to take Brand X and stuff, and then I started Badass Bike. Valkyrie. I never did mine because I hated to cut it up. It was always my favorite bike, and I didn't want it down. But Valkyrie, high powered. You can put a big old tire on it and still burn it to death, and it'd be the fastest thing around. Realistically, I did want to do a VMAX, Yamaha VMAX. The original old ones, or the newer version of it and stuff. Yamaha VMAX was one that I wish that they would have. It got close one time. A guy brought it in and whatnot, and career change. Something happened in the middle of it. The bike was actually here. It was that close, and he decided that he wouldn't do it, and he would sell it. So I sold it for him local and stuff. But Yamaha VMAX, I would have to say, would probably. I think it's very important. you know, in the older days, the vehicles were simpler. So you had all you had to do is have, you know, an elder around that was willing to show you what to do and how to do it and whatnot. They were glad to show you. And they wanted to pass some type of trade on to all their kids or grandkids or the neighborhood kids or whoever was willing to listen. The thing is, technology has gotten things so tied up. You have to have diagnostic equipment and things to be able to even just do a simple brake job anymore and stuff. But it's all about I still think it's important because you got to have hands-on. I feel to know, you know, whether it's working on your lawnmower, working on your bicycle, or working on anything, is you understand how things work. No matter how sophisticated something is, it started as something very, very simple, you know, 150 years ago. So everything's evolved off of that. So I think it's very, very important. It's interesting. I get asked that every once in a while and stuff, and it kind of blows my mind, and I really don't know how to explain it other than, okay, my father built beautiful model airplanes. He would design them and build them and whatnot. So mechanically, I guess you could say he was skilled, but he never did his own mechanic work. He never worked on his automobile. He never did a brake job or nothing. He brought it to a mechanic. My cousin's father was the same way. He had a hot rod and he had a race car and whatnot, but he never did the physical work on it. He went to work, made money, paid guys to work on it and stuff, and he raced. My cousins and I never really had any money to get in it because we were kids. I mean, we were literally 12, 13 years old, buying automobiles, wanting to go fast and all this stuff. So we had to do it ourselves. We didn't have a job. We weren't old enough to get a job. We still had to go to school and stuff. And we all did it ourselves and built everything ourselves, made a lot of mistakes, and learned the right way and the wrong way. And again, the old schoolers were around willing to help. So we all started building our own stuff and working on our own things. I was into motocross racing. My dad got me into motocross racing, and then his brother's kids raced motocross as well. My cousins didn't fare too well in it. They didn't like it as much. They were more into the cars. I stayed into the motorcycle end of it. My father's other brother was big into motorcycles, road triumphs, and all of this stuff. So he's got me into motocross, motorcycling, period, and learning how to race, how to ride, how to work on them. Bubba and Bill, they got into the car end of it. Bill got into chassis and whatnot. Bubba got into restorations and engines. Then I was always in and out of motorcycling. I never got out, but I was into cars and into motorcycling, so I was split. So we did it all. We did everything. We worked on our bikes, we worked on our cars, we worked on our dragsters, Pro Street, you name it. It just evolved around us because it didn't come from our parents, and we didn't really have any family members that did it either. You know, our grandpa wasn't in a shop or none. They came from nowhere. That guy, my grandfather was a sheriff for 20-something years, and it evolved around us. We just did it. It was in our blood for darn sure because it showed up in our kids. Oh my God. Most proud of, I think I was a damn good daddy. That's about it. Sum it up. I think I was good with that. I was proud of that.